everyone. This is Dave Wilson on Another Track, and I've got the immense pleasure of welcoming Stephen Pope on the line. And Stephen, great to meet you finally. I know we sort of went back and forward on the emails
Yeah,
and text. You're a
I
busy man.
appreciate I appreciate your persistence.
No, that's
I
fine.
like
And
that. I like that.
well, and the thing is, it's a fine balance, isn't it, with persistence? You've got to just get it just right. And I thought I'll give him time. I know how busy you are, and you're trying to juggle a lot of balls. But thanks again. I really appreciate you coming on board on a track. But so, listen, if somebody was to meet you, first of all, they didn't know you like I do, through social media, how would you sum yourself up?
Yeah, I'm a family man. I have a wife and two kids. But as an individual, I think entrepreneur, inventor, builder, problem solver is probably the way I would sum it up.
That's fair enough. And you recently, and I assume it's recently because I really don't know how long you've been doing it. You've been very prevalent on LinkedIn, and you are with a number of groups and helping out a lot of people with their business. So how do you go about that? What's the background to your business? And I think it's called SGP Labs. Is that correct?
Yeah, you got it perfect. Yeah, so essentially, I'm really just helping people become the go-to expert in their space. And so, how can they leverage online marketing and video content to generate revenue? Help more people, make more money. And a lot of the clients are moving online. They haven't really been online. Some are online. It's just not working. So it's really just helping them, establish themselves in their industry as the expert.
And that's a really great thing because so many people need that lifeline at the moment. Because I imagine in the last 2 years, obviously with the COVID and what have you, the complete boundaries of what we do in marketing and how we did it before just isn't working anymore, is it?
Yeah, and you could argue it was happening well before that. Like a lot of the people that I study from, a lot of the people, like even my own coaches, they've been literally doing this from like 2007. Like leveraging Facebook and social media and groups and just making tons of money at it, while a lot of people were just doing things kind of like, and I don't want to say this with like judgment, but just doing things the old way, in networking groups. Um, and when you think about social media, all it really is a way to do networking at scale.
Oh,
Like you
totally.
can,
Yeah.
you have organic reach. You can make a post that could reach hundreds of thousands of people. Literally, I do TikToks that reach hundreds of thousands of people. And that's just an insane amount of opportunity for people to take advantage of. It's the same on LinkedIn. I get a lot of reach there, but it's not as much as on TikTok because it's an early platform. But yeah, it's just like there's so much opportunity there, and I just think it's literally this. If you just allowed yourself to just to break free of the limiting beliefs, it's literally the same thing that you do in a networking group. It's just applied online. But people have a lot of hangups when they start to do that, and plus there's just a ton of information. It's like websites, funnels, and you have blockers and just getting on video, and so there's just a lot of things that people run up against, and sometimes they're just doing too much, or they're just stuck, and they're overwhelmed and frustrated, or they've tried a bunch of things and it just didn't work.
That's a really good point you make, is that stuck part and the overwhelm bit is a normal human condition, isn't it? When we are unsure about something, we don't want to put that foot forward just in case we make a mistake. But what do you see as the biggest issue? And how do you help people overcome it?
For the most part, it's like, number one, giving them just like simplifying what they're going to do. Because like it is actually pretty simple. Like people think they need all these different things. And so then when they start to put them together, it's like, it's just too overwhelming. I do the same thing to myself sometimes. Like I have big plans. I've seen people that are further along than I am. And so I want to implement all these different things. But for the most part, it's really like clarity, focus, simplicity, and routine. Because the way I look at marketing, and I think this helps people digest it quite a bit, is like there's an element of setup where you set something up, a simple website, your social media profile, your studio, so you can record a video. But after that, it's like there's no more setup that needs to be done. Now the only thing left is like that patient execution. Okay, now you're recording videos. Now you're actually going out there and advertising that you're going to do a live show, or that you're going to do a webinar or whatever. And you're going to start doing that. And then when it doesn't work, or it doesn't do what you want, or nobody shows up, instead of going back to the drawing board and changing a bunch of stuff or doing more things, you're just going to ask yourself, okay, why did nobody show up for that webinar? And you're going to say, oh, it's because I didn't invite these people. I didn't reach out to enough people. I didn't communicate the value of it, or nobody's interested in that.
Really interesting, really clear. So if somebody was in that situation, say they're very traditional in the way they've done marketing before, maybe they've done emails, they've done the kind of MailChimps of this world, and maybe they've dabbled a little bit with Facebook and LinkedIn, but really hadn't gone great guns on it. What would be your kind of 3-point step to sort of really get them underway in a confident manner, one that we've got some sort of clarity, but also we've got some cadence as well? How would you sort of, say I was one of your clients, how would you set me up to start with? What would be the procedure?
Like in terms of just like literally just getting online?
Yeah, I think so, because
Yeah.
some people are just very, they're used to email, they're used to kind of the talking
Yeah.
over the phone, or even maybe doing a Zoom. But the mysterious thing about online marketing and all the different social media platforms, and they might suddenly go for something like Facebook and think, oh, that'd be great, I'll get me started, and I'll do a Facebook ad, oh, I'm getting to thousands of people, and they think they're doing okay. But the reality is probably different, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, in reality, you have to have like a strategy. So like, this is not something that I invented, but like a go-to market strategy is just like, who's your market? Like, what are you offering them? What's the transformation that you offer? Thinking that through, what's your pricing? And then why are you different? Like setting yourself up, the positioning, thinking through like kind of like what your brand is all about, like your values, and like what do you stand against? Because one of the best ways to stand out is not to literally try to stand out, but just to like identify things that are commonplace in the market, and dispelling myths, so to speak. So like, what's your basic understanding of the marketplace, and how do you position yourself differently? What's truly different about you? Excuse me. And then just deciding like, okay, where am I going to go do this? That's where you actually end up deciding, am I going to go to LinkedIn? Am I going to go to Facebook? Am I going to go to TikTok? Am I going to go here? Or am I going to start a podcast? Like, what channel are you going to use to communicate with people? And that's just like, so there's so many different places to go. I help clients just kind of identify, like, how do you whittle that down into like 1 or 2 places? Because like, you really can't effectively do more than that when you're starting out, right?
Yeah.
Because you'll spread yourself too thin, and you'll never go deep enough to like actually make headway when something isn't working. So it's just like, are your customers there? Do you have any experience with that channel already? Like, do you kind of know the mechanics of it? Because it's like a networking group. When you join it, you don't know the dynamics of the group. And so it's the same with a social media platform. Like LinkedIn has Sales Navigator, and you can search for people, and you can connect with people. And so you have to understand the mechanics of that. So, and then do you already have some connections? Is there organic reach there? So like on LinkedIn, if you make a post, you can reach thousands of people. So you really just put these variables on the table. You assess these different channels, and then you just say, okay, I'm going to pick LinkedIn because it makes the most sense logically. Like it's aligned with my goals. And then you start to operate there. And then I think once you develop a routine, and at the end of the day, you're asking yourself, okay, what went well? What didn't go well? Right. And you have an established routine. So it's like every day or whatever, I'm putting in X amount of time, and you're getting better every day. Then you can start to think about, okay, what else might I do? Like holding an event and inviting people to it, and using that event for content as well. So you're on LinkedIn or you're on wherever, and you're producing some content. You're actually trying to make some direct connections with people through their content, or just literally through direct message, like me and you met.
Yeah.
We might have interacted on content before. So it's like literally just going through these steps and keeping it super simple. And then if nobody shows up to your event, you have to ask yourself, like, why? Like, what was about that nobody showed up? And if you just iterate on that as quickly as possible, you'll solve all those problems.
I love it. I love it. It's very simple and very straightforward. So I'm going to put you on the spot then. Okay, let's have an example of where you went along, down the rabbit hole and you thought this is going to work and it didn't. And what happened and how did you kind of retreat and then rejig and go in a different direction? Give us an example of that.
Well, I'll just even my own journey. So after I sold my previous company, um, and I think this is one. This is very relevant to a lot of people because they're often picking their niche and like, what is my offer and all that kind of stuff. And this is where I spent too long, I think, trying to figure it out for myself. So I sold my company, and then I was really just deciding what am I gonna do next. And I went into I was trying to be like kind of like a technical advisor because my previous business I built a software company and then I sold it. So I was just going to be like a CTO on demand.
Love it. Yeah, it sounds great.
It sounded cool. It sounded good in my head. Um, but it's like I wasn't really engaging with my audience fast enough to kind of like validate what I was trying to offer. Um, and I think I was kind of like emotionally attached to the idea of what it was. So like I had known myself for a long time as this technical guy. And I still am a technical guy. I just do something a little bit different. Like a lot of what I do is technical. But so I was like emotionally attached to like every time I came up with what I was trying to help people with, I was really emotionally attached with it. So when I would get internal senses of this was off or people didn't understand what I was trying to offer, because I kept saying, I'm going to make it cheaper, I'm going to make it faster. But it's like there were some things about that offer that I don't think would have actually even worked. And so I guess what I'm just trying to say is like I spent way too long trying to validate that. I was creating content and not really. It's like here's what it comes down to is like consulting, especially. The success and the speed at which you grow your business is going to be directly proportional to how many conversations you have with people that would actually buy from you.
Absolutely. It's the old hopper theory, isn't it? You stuff it in at the top and you get more out at the bottom.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter when you talk to your friend. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter what your mom says. It doesn't matter what any of these other people say. All of that validation is going to send you the wrong way. And so I just didn't have enough focus on at the end of every day, you have to look and say, how many conversations did I have today with somebody that would actually buy this? And if it's zero, and it might make you a little anxious to track it that way because it's just like you might see zeros. But if you see that every day, eventually your mind's going to be like, okay, something's not right here. I have to find a way to talk to somebody, and I have to do it.
Yeah,
and I have to do it in a way that feels comfortable and it's not sleazy and it's not like those automated DMs that come in and say, hey, buy my stuff. And you just have to face that head on. And I think when you can do that, it will allow you to make a lot more progress because you have to talk to your target market. If you're in a networking group and it's just a bunch of colleagues that would never buy from you, that's not going to help you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, sorry.
It might feel good because you're talking to people and you're telling them about what you do, but that will not move the needle in terms of growing your business.
Well, it's like the self-appreciation society. It's all very nice for people patting you on the back and you pat them on the back. But if it's not moving you forward in real terms, in terms of, more conversations and more sales or, the ones which will ultimately lead you to those gigs where you can coach or help people out, then what's the point, But okay, let's be fair to you now. Let's flip that coin over and give you something that was immensely successful. So you kind of tried everything out to start with. You got down through a couple of blind alleys. You sort of did your analysis and you took a step back. What did you see? And then how did you make a success of it? How did that look?
Yeah. So ultimately what happened to me is that as I was iterating through the tech stuff, I realized, number one, I just didn't have the passion to fight through the friction I was having. So I didn't want to help people with their technology directly anymore. I got tired of that. And so I made a personal realization that part of the reason why I wasn't making traction here was because I just wasn't that interested. Because I think you're going to have some purpose behind what you're doing in order to forge through some of these really uncomfortable early moments where you literally have nobody to talk to.
Oh, I know. I've been
And
there.
then, yeah.
Yeah.
And so for me, what it was is like, I kept looking back to my previous business. I was like, man, like I'm learning all this marketing stuff to build what I was building, learning content. I'm learning copywriting. I'm learning all these things. And then I looked back at my business that I had grown really successfully. We were doing $7 million a year. I looked back at that. I was like, man, if I had known the things I know now about marketing and sales, I could have grown that business so much faster. And then I was having all these, while I was pitching this other service, I was having all these marketing conversations with these professionals and getting them really excited about their own businesses. And I had this epiphany moment. I was like, man, I've grown businesses. I know how to do this. I'm getting other business owners excited about their business. I'm an entrepreneur. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to help other people grow their business. This is what I'm going to do. And so how it started for me is I started a mastermind group where I brought in a bunch of people and I was like, hey, I think I partly sold it on excitement, but I had a lot of information to share as well. I brought like 8 or 9 people together and we were meeting every week and I was just giving them lessons, a little unstructured actually, handling their questions, helping them think things through. And then through that experience, you know, a couple of people kind of bailing out, you know, this isn't what I kind of thought it was. And then having those 6 people stay and then seeing where the value for them dropped off. Right.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
We're meeting every week. And then at a certain point, you know, after 3-4 months of that, there wasn't much left to talk about. And so people started dropping off. And so I started to ask myself, okay, what have I learned here? Why are people dropping off? Like the value obviously has kind of dwindled. And so I really just kind of sat down and crafted a more formal offer that was more specific around the things that I was helping them with. And then I started building out some training material specifically for that, and then got a couple clients to buy into that. It was a more specific offer that was tailored just for them. It was just a one-on-one thing. And then that's how where I'm at now. And so that offer was built out over time. And if you imagined trying to figure that out ahead of time, you couldn't have.
No, that's right. It comes from experience, doesn't it? It's the litmus test, isn't it? You kind of dip your toe in the water, see what reaction you're going to get, and then you can adjust accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just for other people's, like, just to help them relate. Like I'll tell you, there were so many moments when I was running this group that I was just terrified.
Oh God, don't tell me that. I mean, I'm terrified every day sometimes when I do these interviews. Like,
Yeah.
what am I going to? But it's a normal human thing. That's the point, isn't it?
Right. And I think it's okay to be terrified. It's okay to show up and not know exactly what's going to happen. It's a normal process and actually the fastest way to get where you want. I just kept trying to over deliver, and people see that.
Yeah.
And it's quite a fascinating process, because if you thought you could figure it all out ahead of time, you will never do it. So be okay being afraid. Be okay having a couple people walk away from a meeting and feeling like they didn't get something from it, as much, because we all care so much about, well, I think a lot of people care a lot about delivering that value. But be okay with like those really uncomfortable moments, because the faster you just jump into it and learn, is the faster you're going to get that product that somebody actually wants. Yeah.
I love that, because you're breaking it down there and you're making it really human. You're making it kind of right from the heart, you know, and I think that's where you've got to be as well. It's all right being here, but if it's not in the heart, and you said something very interesting about your previous business, the technical support, you know, doing the technical stuff, you really weren't invested in it, were you? It's what you'd done for a long time, but it didn't float the boat anymore. It didn't
Right.
really.
So yes. Yeah. So facing those fears was never going to happen, because I didn't have the passion to do it.
Yeah.
And then just like another example of that is, like, I just launched a little community. It's like this little paid subscription. It's $10 a month, where I'm teaching people how to like build a content machine, essentially. And that was another moment where I had a lot of stress and like a lot of fear around that, because I came up with an initial concept and launched it and got people in the group, and then dealt with all the problems, then dealt with everything. And I just kept staying on top of it, listening to what people were saying, over delivering, communicating, noticing the problems, bringing them to the forefront, solving them, keeping people. And so it's just like, but through that process, like if I had tried to build that group without any problems, I would have launched it.
But you see, what's really interesting, I don't know if you're a Beatles fan or if you've been watching Get Back on Disney at the moment, it's really interesting. It's like putting a great song together, isn't it? It's like composing. You've got to
Yeah.
start somewhere with an idea, a thread that inspires you. But then the whole process of putting it together is bloody hard work. I mean,
Right.
it's constant adjustment, and like when you listen to the first iterations of Get Back on the Let It Be album, it sounded terrible. But what Lennon McCartney did was, oh, try that. Okay, yeah, oh, that sounds a bit better. And it's just this incremental building blocks that you're building, and that's what you were doing. You were getting the feedback as you were going along. You're building the parachute as you were dropping through the sky. But that's
Exactly.
sometimes, yeah. But the point being, though, is don't be frightened to do that. Although it's not the conventional way. A lot of people like to plan things. Jump out the plane. You've got to land somehow. Figure it out, and that's really what you were doing.
Yeah. Or like develop the mental awareness that you are afraid, so that when you because like I'll be honest with you, like 20% of the mornings I wake up, there's an element of anxiety or fear for
I
the
get
day,
it.
for the day that's going to come.
Totally understand that.
But if you're just aware of that, you can grab hold of that and just start to act, because that once you start to act, you get up, you make your coffee, you start playing with your kids, you start to make a little list of things you need to do, and you start doing it. The fear will burn away.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point you make, right? And I'd love to talk about that strategy a little bit more because I'll be totally upfront with you. I get extremely anxious about things because I want to do a good job.
Right.
I want to be able to present myself in the best way to somebody. So somebody invests in me. They think, oh, Dave's a good guy. Actually, he's got it sorted. So there's always that anxiety, but there's the anxiety of the day. I don't know if you ever have this, where you get up and you think, oh gosh, I've got to pay that bill. I've got to interview this person. I've got to do that guy. And it kind of overwhelms you, and it can overwhelm you for weeks on end, right?
Yeah.
So how do you break that cycle? What is it that you do that you can advise the listeners how you deal with it on a daily basis?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, you have to develop the awareness that it's happening. Because if you don't have that, then you can't develop some sort of mechanism to get yourself out of that. So the awareness is number one, and then typically it's just like number one, journaling something in the morning. Like maybe sometimes I just write 4 or 5 lines. A lot of the time I'm just like talking about what I am thankful for. These things are kind of cliche. I didn't create these things up. I just kind of remind myself to do that. I do try to get some exercise on a daily basis, and that helps burn a little bit of that off. And then I just try to make little lists of things I need to do, and I accomplish them. And my other issue too is like sometimes my lists get too long.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
well,
then I overwhelm myself with my own list, and then I start losing track of where I'm at. So I think trying to keep things simple and which is really hard for me because I'm an engineer. I just want to engineer things to like the nth degree.
I totally understand that as well. Engineers are, a certain breed, but what's quite nice about what you've done is you've got the technical aspect, the engineering aspect. So you've got the planning, the sort of design aspect, but also you're getting this sort of social media side going now. That's a much more creative side, which is interesting. You've plugged that
Right.
into your psyche and you've
Yeah.
learned those skills, I imagine. They haven't come always naturally to you. Is that fair to say?
Totally fair. Yeah. I used to be completely afraid to speak, articulate myself, get in front of anybody. Before I did my first LinkedIn video, I was just deathly afraid. So I always talk about like the social media content video thing in a couple different 2 different ways. Is one, yeah, it helps you grow your business. You can literally just put yourself out there. People see it. Sometimes they see one video and they just reach out to you. That's the unicorn post that people are always hoping for. But if you haven't been in social media, that's the only thing you think about. You mean like when do I get my first client, right? Or it's just like they've seen a bunch of your videos over a year, and then they're finally at that point where they're ready to buy and they reach out. But the other side about it is just like learning how to be comfortable with yourself.
Yeah, totally.
and articulating your point of view and being creative. And that has been invaluable. I don't care what business I do. When I start my next one or whatever, I pivot or whatever, I'm going to be so far ahead of so many people that I'll just instantly be in the marketplace interacting with people. And that's what people don't understand. Like even that product I just talked to you about, that group I launched, I literally launched that in 4 days. On a Friday night, I came up with the idea. I wrote an email landing page. I started promoting it on Saturday. I got people to sign up to the email. I then took that email and then emailed everybody on Monday, said I'm going to do a live show and introduce what this is. And then on the live show, I literally told people what the offer was, and I had a couple people in on that thing. So social media allows you to instantly connect with people, and you can grow very quickly. But it takes a little bit of skill to learn how to do that. And so, like when I first started getting on LinkedIn, like I didn't really know how to do it, right? So like you have those stiff videos where I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing.
We've all been there. We've all been there. No, exactly.
But when I moved to TikTok, I was able to grow pretty quickly because I had done videos for a year. I had written headlines. I knew how to write a hook. And so my TikTok account grew pretty quickly. And so you have to understand that these skills, you want to grow your business, you want to get clients, whatever, of course, but the skill base that you learn. So now I do these, like you probably haven't seen it, but I do these TikTok videos that are, some of them are just normal where I'm just talking to the camera, but I do some ones that are kind of creative and like kind of, you might even say, from the outside, you might say kind of weird. Like if I showed them to you, you'd see what I'm talking about, but they're not necessarily really weird, but they're kind of like just different.
Well, they're a bit off the wall, they're a bit kind of outside of the normal confines of what we do, because you're trying to hook visually. That's the important point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I did just last or 2 weekends ago, I was in Hollywood, and I was in a hotel with my family, and my kids went to bed. So now I'm like in this little hotel room, and I can't be in the room. It's all dark. So I go into the bathroom, and I literally record one in the bathroom, and I'm doing this funny motion where I have the camera and I move it towards me, and then I move it towards my face, and then it's kind of hard to explain, but it ended up getting like 50,000 views.
Isn't that incredible, though? Isn't it? Just something very simple. But what do you think it is that captures people's imagination on TikTok, especially? Is it the unusual? Is it the risque? Is it controversial? Or is it all of that stuff?
All of the above, yeah. So controversial always does well on LinkedIn or anywhere, because you're splitting an audience down you're splitting it two people. You're creating like two sides. So then the two people want to battle each other, right? And then on TikTok, it's capturing attention. So you only have like a second. So if there's something visually stunning happening, and in this case, in that bathroom one, there was, because you couldn't really see the bathroom parts of it, but I made it black and white, and there was just this motion that was happening. And then the lights in the bathroom just happened to reflect off my sunglasses. I was wearing sunglasses in the bathroom.
That's funny. I love it. I love it.
And so it created a very stunning visual presence. And then I had this music going, and then I had some stuff written on the text. It was literally like a 7-second video. And I didn't say a word. It was just music, and there was things written on it. And so yeah, you get creative like that. And I would never have thought of making that 2 years ago. I wouldn't have even tried that.
I just love it. I'll tell you the reason why is because when you look back in history, and you can always see things repeating themselves. Bob Dylan did it in the 1960s. He did it with the cards, did the song. He didn't say anything, and he was just eating these cards and dropping them, and had the words of the lyrics to the song, which was simple. Very straightforward. It was in black and white, So I think there's a lot that we can learn from the past. Hey, listen, I'd love to go back to the business in a minute, because I want to talk about Facebook and TikTok and all the different platforms and the logistics and what's involved. But I want to get to know you a little bit, Stephen, because the thing is, we only see this personality here, in social media. But what is really behind it? I mean, you've been really very kind of open about kind of the anxiety that gets built up trying to, get ready for things and what have you. But I want to rewind the clock and say, okay, where did Mom and Pa come from? Where did Stephen come from? Where did the family go back? Have you ever checked the lineage? What's the family history?
Oh, you know, it's funny. My uncle would be upset with me because he's like one of those. He backtracks all of that stuff. Um, I mean, I think I'm like a European mutt essentially.
We all are, aren't we?
I've told people that I have a lot of German over the years, but I think it actually turns out I don't have a lot. So I guess what I'll say is I don't know a lot about that. Yeah. So on that piece of it, it's like I don't know as much about like the heritage of like how all that came to be.
Yeah, so but fair enough though. But where did mum and dad come from? Do you know that kind of background and where you guys originally started off in the US? I assume you're in the US, and then where did you kind of end up? And how did the family journey go as you were a kid growing up? What did you notice and who influenced you?
Yeah. So my dad grew up in San Diego, and then my mom, I think she was originally out like in Buffalo in the early years, and then they moved over to they were in San Diego, and then ultimately moved up to like Santa Paula area, if you know where that is. But anyways, yeah, and so they got together, and then had me, and they actually ended up getting divorced. Pretty early in my years. So it was really just like me and my mom, and then I would be visiting my dad. So that was kind of like the early years, and then yeah, I don't know if you want me to go through like every year,
No,
but
not
like
not particularly, but you know what it is. I suppose you've already kind of indicated. There was a separation in the family that influences you as a young person.
it does, yeah.
But where did that take you, and where did you kind of get to, in your mind about what your ambitions were, where you wanted to go, what were, did you want to go to
Yeah.
university? Did you want to go to college? What was
Yes.
inspiring you,
Yeah. So way early in my years, I was always inventing. I was always trying to sell those inventions, and I was always building all sorts of stuff from like wood to little electronic things. And then it was really, like my early years, this is like early 80s. My dad was into computers and he got us a computer, started programming, starting to build little things to categorize my baseball cards. I was really lucky in that my neighbor was also a programmer,
Right.
and we became friends. And like I was good at a certain type of programming and he was good at some other part, and we would always be sharing ideas. And so that entrepreneurial engineer kind of was just always existed. Lemonade stands, selling all sorts of stuff. And so those things just kind of kept developing. And I like throughout high school, throughout my middle years, I always knew what I was going to do. I was going to become an engineer. I was going to become an entrepreneur. Um, I knew I was going to get a degree in computer science. Um, so I ended up going to college. I got a degree in computer science, and I ended up getting that degree pretty much at like the first bubble, the .com bubble. I couldn't get a job anywhere,
Oh,
and
interesting, eh? Yeah.
partly because I just wasn't really motivated to get one.
Well, at least
Uh,
you're honest about it, that's
yeah,
the
I
thing.
wasn't really motivated. Uh, and so I just started working with startups. I think my dad connected me to the first one. There was just some guy in a garage building a business, and I started assembling all these different things to make this one project work. I liked doing that. It wasn't just like building a website. I was like integrating this technology with that and this website with this, and so it just kind of like just snowballed over the years, and I got more and more serious. I had built up quite a bit of debt going through this process as well, like
As we
just
do, yeah.
yeah. And so at a certain point, I was like, man, I need to make this more serious, and that's when my business really started to take off. I got more serious about it, and then built up the company that I had before, and ended up being on Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies, um, and really just working with a lot of clients, helping a lot of clients build technology. And so that's kind of just like the way that I ended up just transitioning into like more of a full-time engineer or a full-time entrepreneur. But I've really only worked for myself my whole life. Like I've had a normal job probably 2 years of my life.
Yeah, you often find that with sort of serial entrepreneurs is that they're just not going to be in job. They're going to have work, you know, the different income streams which you create, but they're never really going to have a job. That's not going to suit them at all.
Yeah, and I don't make a good employee really either. Like I'm always the person that's like annoyed that the company is doing this. Like
Oh yeah.
I remember like one of my other jobs, I was like researching like how do you form a union, you know, like I
I love it. I love it.
I'm
You know,
like the
you'll be the startup, you know, the reprobate in the ranks, you know. But you know, that's where I come from. You know, I see the injustice in things, and I just I want to get the little guy up there as well and make him successful. You know, that's the thing. You know, and I suppose that's where you come from.
Yeah, I guess so. And I guess I always feel a little, I don't know if entitled's quite the right word, but I always felt like I was more valuable than I was being allowed to. And to be truthful, I remember there's a specific instance where like I was acting very entitled. Like I felt like I should be making more money, but I probably wasn't really contributing as much as I should have. Uh, like I remember I went to my boss and I was like, you know what, like I see you guys making all. I'm almost embarrassed to talk about this. But I was like, I see you guys making all this money, and like I think I should be making more money. And he was actually really gracious, and I still talk to him to this day. Like he could have just been like, "What are you talking about, man? Get out of my office here. Get out of here." But yeah, I just like I was always like that. I was just like I was probably really more frustrated with myself. Really, just like I felt like I could have been. I was probably just like I could be doing more.
You know, that's kind of normal again for that type of personality that you are, I think. You know, I very much remember exactly what you were saying. Like I would go in and say, well, I'm good at computers and you've got a new computer and have youthful enthusiasm and you should let me on it. And, you know, and you think, oh, it's all so self-centered. It's all about me
Yeah, it
rather
really
than
was.
seeing,
Yeah.
yeah, rather than seeing that bigger picture. But, you know, that's the joys of youth. That's the ignorance of youth, you know, and that's what I love because it's a learning game. You know, it's a case of I'm on this journey and I'm going to get a couple of knockbacks. And he was very gracious.
He
Rather,
really was. Like he could have just been like you're being like ridiculous, but he was very calm and just like explained, you know, rationally what was going on. He explained they didn't have as much money as they it might look, but anyway, like yeah, he was. I've always kind of actually looked at him as a mentor, but yeah, it's funny when you look back at those times.
yeah, but you know what's lovely about it is that probably behind the scenes he had a little chuckle to himself and a smile because he probably was very similar to you if he was an entrepreneurial way back. So it's something. Hey, listen, I just want to ask you one quick thing, and it's bugging me because I kept meaning to ask you. You're a jazz
I
fan,
am.
aren't you? And I noticed the posters behind you. You've got in Thelonious Monk and
Yeah.
Duke Ellington. Tell us a little bit about the jazz side of your life.
Yeah. So I played jazz piano. And I've always been interested in this is one of those yearning desires I had my whole life. Like I always loved listening to music, and I didn't actually play anything until much later in my life. I went to college. I actually started being a DJ, and I got tired of two things. I got tired of people telling me that I wasn't a true musician.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the thing about DJs, right? Just like they're
Yeah.
not real. And then I was like I wanted to make my own thing, and then I started making like electronic music, and I got
Nice.
tired. Yeah, I got tired of like always experimenting. Like I could never sit down and like build off of something. Like I was always just starting from scratch. And so I started playing piano. Started getting piano lessons, doing classical, and that was real frustrating as well because it's like it was so like technical and like you'd spend a month, and if you messed up one note, the song was messed up. Um, and so somebody gave me a real book, which if anybody knows what that is, it's just a book full of jazz songs. And the way
Oh,
jazz songs are written is like they're written as like it's like a framework more. It's like chord structures and simple melodies. And then I realized, oh, I could just learn the theory behind all of this. I could learn what is a A major, what notes are in that, and then with jazz, it's like you don't have to play things the same way every time.
yeah,
You
exactly.
you can play an A major like 80 different ways and add different colorations. So I started to learn that framework, and that's when I started really getting into jazz. I had never really listened to it too much, except that my stepdad listened to a lot of it. And then I started to form an appreciation for it when I started to learn what it really was about. And then I just like got into jazz. It became a jazz pianist. I ended up going to a jazz conservatory in Berkeley, not the school at Berkeley, but like Berkeley, California. There's a it's called the CJC, and studied there. And then I was going to junior colleges and playing with kids that were really like basically half my age. And then over like 15 years, I just became a musician, which was fun.
I just love it. I love it. Well, and what's quite nice is that you are a person that once you put your mind to it, you get on and do it. You find a way of doing it. You're a doer, which I love.
Yeah.
Just out of interest, again, it's one of my other questions around jazz. Who has been your kind of your favorites or your biggest influences from the past, would you say?
In the jazz space, I
Yeah.
think these two guys, like Duke and Monk, like I liked Duke because like he's just so elegant, and also like a really good person from what I've been able to discern.
Yeah.
Like, and just like you see him when he's playing, he's got that smile, and he's just like he's orchestrating his band, and just a good dude, and then really cool music, and that I could relate to and play. And then
Yeah.
I liked Thelonious because he had that like real dissonant rhythmic feel to it, which was like just it felt more raw.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
and just like I felt like he just uses these motions where he's just like being like, I don't know how to put it, like just like rebellious or whatever. I don't know how to put it, but it's just like more simple actually. And
Yeah, but simple, but kind of just going outside of the box a little bit, trying it, being a little bit adventurous, living dangerously, that is it. It's taking that risk, isn't it?
yeah, exactly, because the way he like if you like he does a lot with the tritones, which is it doesn't matter what that is exactly, but if you just did that like in a real vanilla way, it wouldn't sound good. But he does it like when you're not quite expecting it, or it's like right off beat, or just like, and so it's just like there's this bounce to it, and it, like however he does it, it's just like it turns these simple notes into something that's like, oh, that was really impactful. And I thought there was something interesting to that, and it was also more simplistic. So instead of me trying to be real technical, like I can't play like Bill Evans, like doing all these really fancy things because I just don't have it in my fingers. But some of that more rhythmic stuff, it's easier for me to connect to and do and replicate.
You know what? Here's the link now. Here's what I'm saying is you bring jazz into your business world. You've got
A bit.
yeah, because
Yeah.
it's sorry, I was just going to say you've got that structure that you work within, but you do the jazz. Well, I'll give it a try. Let's just go for it, and you keep doing it. You keep doing it and varying it a little bit. I'm sure
Yeah.
that's what you've got there.
Yeah. And also like jazz was the first, I agree with you. And then, but jazz was also the first thing that really brought me into the moment. Because I realized it's like, sometimes I would be playing and it would sound not good. And it was literally just because I was like in the mental part of my brain. And so it was the first time where I was just like, you know what, I could just be. I could play less and just be in the moment and listen. Because I tell people this, like in my life, sometimes I've been like an anti-Buddhist.
Yeah.
I've been anxious about the past, or dreading the future, or thinking about the future, or making plans, and not just like always just kind of being in the moment. And so jazz kind of like, it was the first realization. It's like, oh, I can just sit here in the moment and just be here.
And you do see that with the great professionals. I mean, I remember watching Dave Brubeck with the quartet and everything just a few weeks ago. There's a great movie on, I think it's YouTube, from 1959. And just the way the guys just look at each other, there's that little look, and it gets changed up, and you think, wow, that's synchronicity, but it's not really. It's just a little bit of an indicator, and then you go and do your thing, and it's very much in that moment. It's organic, and that like framework is there, but somebody's coordinating it a little bit, but you have freedom as well, and I love that.
Yeah, I used to like going. I want to get back into a group, but yeah, I agree with you. Like, and one thing that was fun about playing in a jazz band is like everybody comes in and like nobody says anything.
Yeah.
And they're just like they tinker on their instrument. Maybe it's like a nod or something, but sometimes people just literally say nothing. They've got some baggage from the rest of their day, and maybe they're processing that and they're just getting their stuff set up. and then you play, and then you're only communicating by looking at each other and giving each other nods and listening, and like you'll do something and the bassist will look at you and be like, yeah, and you're like, oh, it just feels really cool.
It's so great. Listen, I could talk to you all day about jazz. I have to say, it's something that really feeds my soul. But let's go back to business, because I'd love to sort of link it back. Now, I'm going to do a couple of challenges for you here, right? And I want to see what your reactions are to this, because I've had two lines of thought in this. Social media. Do you go down that route and do the marketing via that, which you have been doing, or do you look more focused at creating funnels?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Funnels are kind of like a slippery slope. Like um, the social media is where you build the awareness and the trust. And so actually most funnels, like really what it really can come down to is really just a single final place where somebody can come and see what you're offering. So I don't go down the funnel rabbit hole and make real complicated funnels. There is probably a time and a place for that when you're selling like specific products, and you've seen those ones where you buy something and then they offer you some more and more and more and more. That's not my expertise. All my funnels, I am about to start running some YouTube ads and playing around with that, and I'll build a funnel around that. But even that one will be very simple, because it's like people get lost in those unless there's a really compelling reason. So really a good funnel is like a video and a place to contact you in some way, form or another.
That's fair enough. And I know that that's been the two kind of trains of thought at the moment. Social media and then traditional marketing is still not working the way that people expect, and it's not filling people's coffers quick enough. So what you're probably saying, and I'm kind of surmising from this, is that funnels can be a quick fix if you want it to be, and it will take you down a certain route, but there's a limitation maybe to it. You're not building up that great organic database of people that really are going to keep coming back. Is that fair to say?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I just think all a funnel is really just like it's really multiple things are going on. So part of the funnel is just people knowing that you exist. So I guess I wouldn't think of a funnel as just like a ClickFunnels like landing page or something like that where it converts and creates cash. The funnel starts with people even just knowing you exist. So I think they're kind of interchanged. Like, so I don't necessarily I guess these words sometimes have like meanings that may or may not, or they mean things to different people. But to me, a funnel is just like, you've got to build awareness that you exist. You've got to like show that you have something meaningful that someone would then take action to go look and do a little bit more investigation. And you're either getting people to this landing page from a paid advertisement, from a social media post, or just meeting somebody on the road and just saying, hey, I've got this thing, go check it out. So it's all, to me, it's like all kind of they're all kind of related.
They are. I totally agree with you on that, actually. So, okay, what are some of the small actions? Somebody's in business, they're thinking about really establishing themselves on social media. Where would you say, as a quick 3-step sort of, guide, where would you say they should go first? And what are some of the actions they should do to start that process and the cadence?
Yeah. So number one is commit, because there's going to be moments where you have no idea what you're doing, and you're probably going to feel like you're wasting time, and it's not going to be getting you what you want. So number one, you got to commit, because when you got to have something to get you over those hard times. And then again, you have to have that strategy, which is just basically, who are you going after? What are you offering? Why are you different? Where are you going? Like we were kind of talking about now. And then just how do you execute it? Do you have a basic sales and marketing funnel set up? Like, do you have a way are you creating content to build some awareness that you exist? Are you networking on that platform a bit to connect with people and bring them on your podcast, or, and then do you have a way to, capture their demand when it actually exists with some sort of website or basic landing page? And then do you have a way to book a call with you and then take payment? And do you know how to run a sales call? And you set up those basic things and stick with that, get it ironed out. And then once you have that, you can expand.
Okay, so now I want to just give the listeners an idea where you plug into that equation. So what are the practical things that you can do? So if somebody is hearing you on the podcast now, I like that guy, Stephen Pope. He speaks to me. What are some of the things that you're able to do when you plug into a business or to help somebody and coach somebody?
Yeah, so I take people really through that whole process. Like it's really there's 5 keys to success here. It's like marketing and sales strategy, your website and funnel, and then for me, it's some sort of video content that you're creating, and that could vary. It's like people, it's like podcast. It could be Q&As. It could be webinars. So some sort of video, and then how do you repurpose that into other pieces of content? And then the final piece is really just kind of community building. It's like, do you have something that's in your regular routine that's like reaching out to people, making partnerships, being guests on other podcasts, and presenting for other people, so that you're built like when you have your own awareness that you're building, but you can also integrate with other people that are building awareness. So like me and you, like you're going to distribute this to your network, and now suddenly a whole new group of people are going to be introduced to Stephen. And now can ultimately connect with me or not. And I'm going to ask you, hey, can I have this recording?
You certainly can.
And then I will literally just put this on my podcast. I'll put it on my website.
Yeah.
And now people will know David Wilson. And now like 2 networks have merged. And when after they connect and they pull apart, some people will stay and some people will go, and there's a little cross-pollination there. And so when you mix all of those elements, you have really a marketing machine, and then you can build on it.
You do for sure. And I appreciate that offer, by the way. I really, really do, because I think as co-presenters, I suppose, in many ways in the media sort of circles, we need to do that cross-pollination. It's so important, and you don't want to give up any opportunity to be able to do that.
I mean, like why can't I just take your podcast and publish it on mine? Like we have all these like limitations of like, but there's and I've learned this from other people. These are not always all my ideas. Like I see other people that I respect doing that. I'm like, oh, he was a guest on a podcast and he just published that on his own. Why not?
Exactly. And you said that as one of your points, actually, that repurposing. And I think that's what people forget. You tend to do something, okay, that's Facebook done. But no, repurpose Instagram, TikTok. You go through all the platforms and just maybe take 30 seconds out of it and throw it on there. Just do it. That's the important thing.
Yeah, it's free exposure. I mean, literally.
Absolutely. Okay, so if somebody wanted to reach out to you, Steve, what's the best way of getting a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can obviously find me on LinkedIn. If you type in Stephen G. Pope, you can find me there. You can find me on TikTok. If you type Stephen G. Pope, you can find me there. Or you can just go to my website, sgplabs.com, and you can book a call right from there. But pretty accessible, actually.
Well, you are absolutely, I must admit, and you are regularly on the platform. So I don't think anybody will have any problems reaching out to you. So just quickly and very briefly before we go, if you were looking at the crystal ball for Stephen Pope, SGP Labs, where are you going to be going in the next 5 or 10 years? What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm going to be helping people build out these media machines.
Perfect.
Build out a content machine, build out the system to really educate people on not necessarily why you're the best, but how they can be the best, and then in turn they will seek you out if they need extra help.
Excellent. It can't be simpler than that. And this is the final question, I promise you. Okay. And I ask everybody this: if you were 18 again, what would you tell yourself?
Probably just relax a bit and enjoy things. Things will be fine. I still have to tell myself that sometimes.
And absolutely, it affects us all, but that's just great advice. Well, Stephen, it's been a real pleasure. I'm so glad we connected.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. This has been a fun one.
I hope so as well. And I'll definitely package everything up for you, video and the audio, and you can do as you see fit. And the same at my end. We'll get it all sorted and we'll go from there. But take care. Keep doing what you're doing. I know you have an effect. Man. Yeah, well, and it's great, and I love the feedback I'm getting from my network. I mean, you've definitely got some clarity there, and people do talk about you in a very positive way, which is great. And so you got to keep that going.
That's great to hear. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Take it steady. Look after yourself. Keep listening to the jazz.
Yeah, you too, man. See ya.
Take care. See you soon.
Hey, that was honestly I love that. It was a good interview. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye-bye. See ya.